Madhava Kunya Vihari Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Paramahamsa Paravatikacharya, also Tara Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Devotee Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Friends, say go Shri Krishna Chaitanya, O Nityananda, Shri Dvaita Gadadhara, Shiva Siddhi Gaur, Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna, Go Bhagavata Sai, Vrinda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Machuranam Ki Jai, Jagannath Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamaya Ki Jai, Shrimati Vilasi Devi Ki Jai, Sangeeta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Ganat Timadandasya Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Miniham Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we're going to tell you the story about the Panihati festival. And this involves the mercy of Lord Nityananda and a devotee named Raghunathas Goswami, who you're going to meet. So Lord Nityananda is Balaram, who appeared 500 years ago. And without the mercy of Balaram, no one can get the mercy of who? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna appearing in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And Balaram, Balaram appears as Lord Nityananda. So the primary followers of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are known as the Six Goswamis of Vrndavan. And these were the personalities who wrote the literatures that are guiding the Krishna consciousness movement, and also the literatures that deal with the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and they established the holy places in Vrindavan. If any of you have ever been to Vrindavan, you've gone to different temples, they're the ones who established the temples. These 6 Goswamis, the initial followers of Lord Chaitanya. And Raghunathas Goswami is one of those followers, Goswamis, and he specifically established the temples and the area around Radha Kund. Everyone's heard of Radha Kund? That's the holiest place, Radha Kund and Shaima Kund. Krishna said to Radharani that your lake, Radha Kund, is as dear to me as you are. And so, it's a little story. We're not going to tell the story about Radha Kund and Shaima Kund, but as far as Raghunathas Goswami, he appeared, of course, in India in a place called Saptagram, which is right on the coast in Bengal. And he was born in a very rich family. His father and uncle were Aranya and Govardhan. That's a pretty good name. Aranya means gold. And Govardhan's pretty spiritual. I don't know what gold is. Anyway, so when he was young, he had the association of this great devotee named Haridas Thakur. And Haridas Thakur, in spite of being born in a Muslim family, was the Namacharya, or the teacher of the holy names. Because Lord Chaitanya was teaching that no matter what family you're born in, if you take up the chanting of the holy names, then you can be at the highest brahminical status. And that's not just his invention. It says in the Vedic literatures, Aho bata swapachato garyan yajivagre vartate namatubhyam tapus Jehovah Shashnarya Brahmanucha nama granantiyete, which means how wonderful it is if someone is chanting the holy names, he has come to the platform of being a Brahmin. So that was Haridas Thakur. Incidentally, Raghunathas Goswami was not born in a Brahmin family either. He was born in a Kayashta, or mercantile family. So, once upon a time, word reached this place of Saptagram, where Raghunathas Goswami was born, and he was a little old, he was like a teenager at this time, that Lord Chaitanya had gone to Shantipur. And so he went to Shantipur to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu put his foot on Raghunathas Goswami's head and embraced him. And that was the first time. And he wanted, after meeting Lord Chaitanya, to give up his everything and run away and join Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri. But Lord Chaitanya advised him against it. And he actually met Lord Chaitanya a second time in Shantipur. This is a picture of Advaitacharya's house in Shantipur. But then Lord Chaitanya advised him to actually act nicely. Don't try to run away, because every time he tried to run away from home, guess what happened? His parents had guards and they brought him back. When I was young, I tried to run away from home, and the police brought me back. That's a different story. It had nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. So then Raghunathas Goswami, following Lord Chaitanya's instruction to act like, let's say, someone who has a paramour, to act completely like a first-class businessman and not arouse suspicion. And then Raghunathas Goswami did this. He tended to business and he did many wonderful things. So one day, but he was thinking of getting away. So one day, he heard that in the village of Panihati, and that's related to today's festival, that there was the great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, as I said, Balaram's appearance 500 years ago, named Lord Nityananda. And so he went to Panihati to see Lord Nityananda, but he was so humble that he stayed like several hundred meters away from Lord Nityananda. And Lord Nityananda was as brilliant as millions or thousands or unlimited numbers of suns. Completely, well, it's hard to describe how brilliant he was. And Lord Nityananda called Raghunath from a distant place, because Raghunath had not come close. And he said, "Come here, you're a thief." And he said, "Because you're a thief, I'm going to," and he put his feet on Raghunath's head, "I'm going to fine you. And the fine is you have to do a Panihati festival." So this is Krishna and Balaram, because Lord Nityananda said, "I belong to a community of coward boys, and therefore I generally have many coward associates with me. and we want to have a picnic on the bank of the river. So Krishna Balaram, that's Lord Nityananda again. And then he said, prepare chip rice. And you'll see some of this chip rice today. Of course, this is not the same chip rice that was before. They always made 500 years ago. It didn't last that long. So they had 400 giant pots that were soaked of rice, that were soaked in hot milk and divided. And everyone was given 2 smaller pots. And one pot was chip rice with condensed milk and special banana, sugar, ghee, and camphor. And the other pot was chip rice with yogurt, sugar, and bananas. And so this was a big feast on the bank of the Ganges. And then Lord Nityananda sat on a raised platform with all of his associates with 7 pots, and he called for Lord Chaitanya to appear, and very few devotees could see Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Nityananda was taking one morsel from every pot and going around to all the devotees and giving them to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And no one saw that except for 2 or 3 people. Then they both sat down afterwards and enjoyed the prasadam together. And Lord Nityananda said, everyone chant Hari Hari. In other words, Hari Hari. And so the shopkeepers, as is the case in India, whenever they hear of a festival, guess what? They set up shop everywhere. So the shopkeepers came with everything, more food to sell. And Raghunathas bought everything from all the shopkeepers and gave it to the devotees. He was such a wealthy personality. And these are like the pastimes of Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan. Like Krishna and Balaram taking food with their associates in Vrindavan. And then finally, Lord Nityananda called Raghunathas to him. This is actually where the Panihati festival took place, right near this tree. That's a picture of it. A special darshan. And Lord Nityananda, after the whole thing ended, he said, my dear Raghunathas, since you have arranged this wonderful festival, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has personally come to taste the prasadam. And so he gave Raghunathas all of his remnants and the remnants of the other devotees. That night, one of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates, Radhava Pandit, who's an incarnation of Damayanti in Krishna's pastimes, cooked prasadam, and the devotees had more of a festival, and they all danced. The next morning, Raghunathas prayed to Lord Nityananda to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he prayed that only with your mercy, Lord Nityananda, can one get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So this is very important. There's also a verse in the Vedic literatures, Nayamatma Balahinena Labhva. Without the mercy of Balaram, no one gets the mercy of Krishna. So as we mentioned, Balaram has appeared as Lord Nityananda. So this pastime shows us the importance of getting the mercy of Balaram, Lord Nityananda. That's the proper approach. And of course, Balaram is considered to be the original what? See, original guru. So you have to listen. So the original guru, the guru represents Lord Nityananda, and that's the process, the hierarchy, the process, the procedure for becoming Krishna conscious. So Lord Nityananda also glorified Raghunathas for being very rich. Why did he do that? Because he wanted to show that in spite of all this opulence, Raghunathas was completely detached from it and ready to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, Prabhupada, our spiritual master, did the same thing when he brought his devotees from the Western world to India. He called his devotees the dancing white what? Elephants. I don't know. That's not an insult. Anyway, because we were serving Prabhupada. We were willing to do anything for Prabhupada. And when Prabhupada, what? I know. Maybe next life. So, So why did Prabhupada talk about the opulence of his devotees? Because he wanted to show people in India that here were people in the Western world who had all the opulence, and what did they do? They joined the Hare Krishna movement and gave it all up to serve Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Nityananda was doing the same thing with his associates. He glorified Raghunathas, so rich, and he still wants to serve Krishna. So Raghunathas went home after getting the mercy of Lord Nityananda, who you see here. And when he went home, he just stayed, not in the house, but outside of his house. And one day, what happened is that his spiritual master, who was Yadunandana Acharya, came to him and said, no one has shown up to do the deity worship. Can you please make sure the person comes who's supposed to do the deity worship? And this was the middle of the night. And so Raghunath Das, he just headed for the hills. That is Jagannath Puri that you see here. And he went to Jagannath Puri. Went 12 days it took him to walk to Jagannath Puri. And for 3 days he ate, and the rest of the time he fasted. So when he first went to Jagannath Puri, of course, then he met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who you see here in Jagannath Puri. And Lord Chaitanya said to him, Krishna is very merciful. He has saved you from the materialistic life. And of course, he didn't say such kind things about Raghunath Das's father, Nagu, which I won't talk about here, because they were interested in keeping Raghunath Das from being Krishna conscious. So then, the first time when he met Lord Chaitanya, he started to eat the remnants of Lord Chaitanya's meal. And this is pretty nice, you know, Lord Chaitanya personally taking prasad and then taking his personal remnants. That's pretty merciful. But that only went on for 5 days. Now, why would he only eat Lord Chaitanya's remnants for 5 days? Because he wanted to engage in more austerity. Now, I'm not saying this is for everyone. So then after 5 days, when he began to engage in austerity, he actually took shelter of Lord Chaitanya's great associate named Swarup Damodar Goswami, who you see here. In fact, sometimes Raghunath Das is known as the Raghu of Swarup. So he became very austere. He was instructed by Lord Chaitanya through Swarup Damodar Goswami to not expect any honor, but to offer respect to all others, which is similar to the Shikshashtra verse, Amanina Manadena Tirtmiya Sada. Always chant the holy name of Lord Krishna, and within your mind, always think of the pastimes of Shishi, Radha, and Krishna in Vrindavan. And if you're a renunciate, a sannyasi, this is going to scare all of you. None of you are going to want to be sannyasis when you hear this. Don't be anxious to taste different foods. That's one of the sannyasi's injunctions. The sannyasi has to control the tongue. Because in this world, people are running here and there to taste different foods, right? Like sometimes people will say, what restaurant are we going to tonight? Oh, Italian. What restaurant tomorrow? Mexican. What restaurant are we going to now? What other types of restaurants you got? South Indian. Chinese. Japanese. But it's like Govinda is better. So anyway, this injunction doesn't apply to the rest of you. You can always be anxious. The rest of you can be anxious to taste different foods. But for us sannyasis, we're finished with that. So on the 6th day, remember he stopped eating the remnants of Lord Chaitanya. Then he started begging at the gate of the Jagannath Puri temple known as the Singha Dwara. That means the lion gate of the temple, the main gate of the temple. So after a few days, he gave that up. And he started eating from the free prasadam booth that was there. And the reason he did that was because he thought that if you're begging, then you're going to discriminate who's nice and who's not nice by whether they give it to you or not. So you want to be equipoised. One of the words for that is samadarshi, to see everyone equal. Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavihastani. What's the rest of that? Shuni Chaiva Prapakecha Pandita Samadarshana. So that's a sannyasa. So that was on the 6th day, and then he gave up that, and then he actually was given, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw his austerity, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him a Govardhan Shila and Gunjamal. A Govardhan Shila is a stone from Govardhan Hill, and it's non-different from Krishna. Non-different from Krishna. And the Gunjamal you see here represents Srimati Radharani. And this Govardhan Shila was personally held by Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya would cry over it. It was washed by the tears of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Raghunath Das got another instruction from Lord Chaitanya, and I'll read this. No Brahmya Katha, that means ordinary village talks. Don't hear, don't speak, don't eat palatable foodstuffs, don't dress opulently, but don't expect honor, but give it. Always chant Hare Krishna. And that was the instruction from Lord Chaitanya. And there was Lord Chaitanya with the Govardhan Shila, another picture of Lord Chaitanya and the Govardhan Shila. Finally, Raghunath Das's austerity became so pronounced that he even gave up eating at the free food kitchen that was there in Jagannath Puri. Then he went to the place where they threw out the prasad that nobody would eat, that even the cows wouldn't eat. It was just rice. And he would wash the rice with a little water and put a little salt on it, and that's what he would eat. Oh my God. Really austere. Try to understand, these devotees we're talking about, especially Raghunathas, he came from the spiritual world. So these devotees, they can live without eating. Like finally when Raghunath Das went to Vrindavan, he was eating, let's say, once every 3 days, he'd eat little buttermilk, chach, little buttermilk. So this is not an austerity for any one of us. Don't worry. I don't do it. Not even in my dreams. So, anyway, so then Raghunath Das would take this old food and wash it, put a little salt in it, and eat it. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to him one day and said, why are you keeping all this nice prasadam for yourself? Wow. I mean, sometimes people think Mahaprasadam is only the sweets, right? They say, give me some Mahaprasadam, you give them a vegetable shot. They say, no, I want Mahaprasadam. Therefore, you find devotees like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would sometimes mix all the different types of prasadam together so people would distinguish, because Mahaprasadam is something that is eaten by Krishna. So, and then Lord Chaitanya took like 2 morsels and he was stopped from taking any more, but Lord Chaitanya said, why are you keeping all this nice prasadam for yourself? After 16 years with Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri, Lord Chaitanya passed away from this world. He entered into the Tota Gopinath temple, and Swarup Damodar also left this world. And Raghunath Das went to Vrindavan, and he thought, without Lord Chaitanya, my life has no meaning. So what did he want to do? He wanted to jump from Govardhan Hill and end his existence in this world. But the devotees thought, no, this is not a good idea. So they engaged Raghunath Das in reciting Lord Chaitanya's pastimes every day. One of the reasons we know so many pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is because of Raghunath Das, who had spent 16 years staying with Lord Chaitanya, longer than any other one else, basically. 16 years. So the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita is filled with stories that come from Raghunath Das Goswami that were told to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who is staying right next to him on the banks of the Sharmakund at a place called Manasa Pavanaga. And Raghunath Das became the Acharya of the Radhakund area, as we mentioned before. He himself never put any of these properties in his name because he didn't want to become entangled again. These properties at Radhakund and Shamakund were put in the name of Jiva Goswami, one of the other Goswamis of Vrindavan. So as he was excavating the Shaima Kund, that is the Kund made by Krishna, with all the holy rivers, he had a dream, and the Pandavas, especially Yudhisthira Maharaj, appeared to Raghunathas in the middle of the night and told him, we are living in trees around the Shaima Kund. Don't cut us down. And that's why the Shaima Kund is shaped very much irregularly. Of course, this is, what you see here is the Bhima tree. These trees are pretty much gone now. And then there's the Arjuna tree there. So Raghunathas lived very austerely, wrote many literatures on the banks of the Radhakund and the Shaima Kund. But there was sometimes a problem because he was living out in the open without a bhajan kutir. He was so austere. So at that time, there were tigers there. Big Bengali tigers. We're not talking about little pussycats. These things, it's like from here to the edge of that doorway. That's how big they are. They're big tigers. And they can definitely eat a few human beings in one bite. So, one time, Sanatana Goswami, another one of the Goswamis, saw Raghunathas chanting on the banks of the Radhakund, and he saw Krishna there, who was holding a stick to protect Raghunathas from the tiger. Oops, there's a different one. And he chastised Raghunathas, build yourself a kutir. But Raghunathas said, no, I'm not going to build a kutir. Krishna will protect me. So then, very shortly thereafter, Raghunathas was chanting on the banks of the Shamakund or Radhakund, and there was a hot day in the middle of the summer. As everybody knows, in Radhakund, Shamakund, and Govardhan, it can get up to 50 degrees centigrade during the summer. Very hot. And Sanatana Goswami saw Srimati Radharani holding her veil over Raghunathas's head. Then Sanatana Goswami chastised Raghunathas and said, you have to build a kutir. So there's another picture of that. So Raghunathas eventually built a kutir. Another picture of Radharani holding her veil. This is from a beautiful picture that's in the Bhajan Kutir. See, we're getting a sound transmission from here. And Raghunathas, let me turn off this side. So Raghunathas excavated a well by the banks of the Radhakund because the devotees were using Radhakund to wash their clothes and do everything else, which wasn't proper. So he excavated a well. This well is called the Gopi Kupa. And when he excavated this well, they ran into a stone that was bleeding. And this stone, Raghunathas told the people to stop because he didn't know what was happening. That night he had a dream, and Krishna revealed to him that this was the tongue of Govardhan. And this is a temple that's on the tongue. That's the tongue of Govardhan. See? And there we are. There's the tongue of Govardhan. So Raghunathas was wondering, where am I going to get money to excavate Radhakund and Shamakund? And he wasn't interested in getting it from his parents because that was a no-no. So what happened is that there was a man who was in Badrinath, and that man had a dream in which the Lord, Badrinarayan, told him in the middle of the night to pay for the excavation of Radhakund and Shamakund and go to see Raghunathas Goswami. So he was sent by Lord Badrinath to see Raghunathas Goswami to excavate Radhakund and Shamakund. And as they were excavating Radhakund and Shamakund, they discovered the two deities that were in Radhakund. These are called the Radhakrishna Param Mandir. Remember that? We took you there. The original deities of Radhakund, and these are still being worshipped today. Here's a bigger picture of them. So, as Raghunathas, just two other stories. We're trying to keep this short because we have a lot of programs today. So, another thing that happened, just showing you Raghunathas Goswami's exalted position. One day, Raghunathas Goswami had indigestion. He was actually quite sick, and his stomach was all bloated. So, how did that happen? Because he was only eating a little chach and a little buttermilk every 3 days. And the doctor came, and he said, you're taking too much sweet rice. And all the devotees said, what? How can this be? He's taking too much sweet rice. So it turns out that in his meditation, he was Manaseva. He was actually offering sweet rice to Krishna and taking it. So it's so powerful is the meditation of a great pure devotee like that. It actually becomes externally manifest. Amazing. And Raghunathas composed many different literatures. He also established the bathing place at Janavamata at Radhakund, and also her sitting place. Every day he chanted 1 lakh of rounds, offered 1,000 dandavats, 3 hours narrating Lord Chitanya's Leela, and 2 daily baths in Radhakund. He passed from this world in 1595. He lived in Vrndavan for 41 years, Jagannath Puri, as I said before, for 16 years, and he associated with Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Here are some of his books. He was a poet and dramatist, and some of his books were the Stavamali, Danakeli Chintamani, which is about the tax pastime of Krishna, collecting taxes from the gopis, and the Mukta Charita, which is the story of the pearl pastime, where Krishna planted pearls in the ground that grew into pearl trees. And the gopis tried it and nothing happens. We don't have time to tell that story. And especially this other book called the Manak Shiksha, which is very, instructions to the mind, which is published now in ISKCON. And here's a list of some of the other books that I'm not going to read this whole list, but he composed with commentaries and original works, so many literatures in a short span of time. So these were very intelligent personalities, directly, all the Goswamis, directly coming from the spiritual world, and their ontological position in the spiritual world is as Manjari Gopis. That means assistants to Srimati Radharani and the other gopis. So because of Raghunath Das's mercy, which he got from Gloria Nityananda, we are here today celebrating this Panihati festival. So that's it. We'll keep it short. And now we're going to have because Aditya Ryan told me to keep it short. He's my boss. And so now we're going to have we're going to give these certificates to all the children. And are the teachers here with the certificates? No? Not really. Well, so what do we do? I guess they're not here. So, what? More class? No, we have to go ahead with the program. Anyway, so anyone have any questions about Raghunathas Goswami or? Yes?
Yeah, he wanted to jump off the
Govardhan Hill.
Govardhan Hill. I know if I had done it, I'd have that comment next lives, I'd have many lives, or have suicide.
Yes. Actually, no one is supposed to commit suicide. Suicide is not allowed according to Vaishnava understanding. If someone commits suicide, they become a ghost. Woo! You don't want to be a ghost. Okay, I think Champaka is here. So we have some of the certificates. And actually we have 2 branches of the schools here. We have Goloka Community School, and we have the BKG Academy, named after someone I don't know. So is Adari everywhere? Yeah, I hope so. Okay, so I'm going to sign each one of these. And so let me explain about the schools while we're at it. One school is a traditional school. Whoops, what's that?
For the kids, man.
Oh, for the kids. Careful, don't knock over my
Yes.
computer.
They painted these.
Oh, they painted those, okay. One school is a traditional Hare Krishna school, which is the Goloka Community School, and the other one is a cooperative homeschooling endeavor. So Champaka has room, if anyone's interested in cooperative homeschooling and the child is more than fourth grade and above, Champaka can accept some students at this point for next year. And many of the whoops, careful. Don't want to hit the camera. So many of the children are in chanting rounds. We have a few of them who are chanting 16 rounds of Japamala every day. And some of them will be taking initiation this year. So where do I start? Okay, so we'll quickly go through. We don't have a lot of time. So the first one is Ayush. Thank you very much. Ayush has done very well. We don't have time to talk about each person, but he's expert in Sanskrit. Next one is Ishwara Puri. As you know, Ishwara Puri is the spiritual master of Lord Chitanya. He's a very good student too. And then his sister, Sundari. I forgot to sign yours, Ishwara Puri. And finally, Vanamali. I got it to sign it. Is Vanamali here? Vanamali's not here.
Yeah, I don't think he's here.
Okay, so we'll say that for later. Okay, and then Goloka Community School students. Where's Adarya Leela's doing a fantastic job. Amazing how well she's doing. So, because I don't sign these ones. So this is what's that? I don't think so. Do I sign it? I can sign in the corner. Okay. So we'll go very quickly. Adi Deva. Is Adi Deva here? Careful. Look what you're doing. Please keep moving. Okay.
I'll take
You get a certificate.
Thank you very
and
much.
do you have an extra hand?
Yes.
All right, next is Bilu Sundari. Very good, very well. Here we go. It's all for you. Next is Giriraj. Is Giriraj here? Giriraj. These students all did very, very well. Oh, here, Giriraj. Next is Harini. Next is Kapi. Here we go. Be very good. You are good. And next is Madhavi Grace. Here we go. Madhavi, very nice. Next is Nandini Tulsi. Can you get it? Very good. And Pranaya Kelly. Is she here? No. She's not here, so we'll save that for later. Next is Ram Benjamin. And that's it.
Make.
Very good. We want to thank the teachers. Both the teachers are doing a fantastic job with the children. I'm very proud of both the schools. Fantastic. Okay, so thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And now we'll proceed with Narayan's part of the program. You can make some.
Hare Krishna. Let's again express our gratitude to His Holiness Sri Krishna Goswami Maharaj. So this festival, the festival of Maharaj, is actually our philosophy of getting the mercy. We actually receive the mercy by first getting Vaishnava mercy. First we get the mercy of Vaishnava, then we can get the mercy of Nityananda, and then Gauranga, and then Shri Shri Radha Goloka. So this